Hello, my fellow comic book collectors. This is just going to be my review of Peacemaker. So I just finished watching Peacemaker, and I sort of binge watched it. I just watched. It was 8 episodes, and each episode's like 40 minutes. So I just binge watched it, which is a really great way of actually watching any series, because you sort of can get that one take kind of impression of the show, and I thought it was very interesting. So I'm going to give you my positive side and my negatives to the show. So my positive things that I thought were really great is the cast. The cast, everyone in the cast, I enjoyed. I thought they were all great characters. Um, Great acting, great characters. I liked all of them, good and bad characters. I enjoyed all of them, and I enjoyed the music. That's kind of a key thing in Peacemaker. I found that kind of classic rock, metal music. I thought that was kind of interesting that there was a lot of that in the Peacemaker TV series. It was kind of interesting that they did a lot of like nostalgic, like glam rock music. I thought it was kind of interesting. Um, and the it kind of reminded me of Cobra Kai in many ways. Um, that you get the situation where, and there's going to be spoilers. Sorry, like I'm just going to give spoilers in this. So if you haven't watched the series, well, I recommend you do watch it. So that's one positive. Um, but there's going to be spoilers, so you've been warned. But the thing that I enjoyed is the fact that it is kind of like Cobra Kai, that you get kind of this guy that's almost taken out of that 80s 90s kind of vibe, where it's before the political correctness, maybe, which I hate. I hate political correctness. I'm like notorious for saying my what I think, and I am notorious for getting myself into trouble, and getting myself into these controversies. Even with my own family, I'm the sort of the black sheep. So uh, it is my curse, I would say. But that's because I'm not politically correct. I say what's on my mind, and I think that was kind of the redeeming thing about Peacemaker. So just like Cobra Kai, um, what we see characters who are politically correct tossed in a lot in Peacemaker. And then you have Peacemaker himself, who is the opposite of that. He is the politically incorrect thing. He says what's on his mind. He says, uh, he says interesting things about women. He says interesting things about anybody. And he's a bully in many ways in terms of the way he speaks. He constantly makes fun of people. And that's very against the kind of attitude that we have nowadays. Now, back like when I was a kid, one of the things that we do as a kind of a sign of endearment, it's a different time. We would literally make fun of people. just We'd make fun of, oh, your mother jokes, or your mama jokes, and just everything. We just trash talk each other as guys would do back in the 80s. And that kind of was very Peacemaker like. That kind of way of talking. Nowadays, people are so like, they really don't want to offend anybody. And whereas back in the 80s, you'd want to offend people. You'd go out of your way almost to offend people. It was kind of fun. So yeah, so very different attitudes. And that's what we see. That's the internal clash within Peacemaker, which is kind of interesting. I thought that was kind of fun. And it's the same clash that you see in Cobra Kai. So I kind of see the parallels between them. Now with Peacemaker, now the general plot, I'm going to give the general plot, is that we have these things called butterflies. And it's basically the basic alien, body snatcher kind of thing, where the little butterfly creature goes into your brain and takes you over, and then you become a butterfly creature. Well, human, but you get extra powers, you're a little bit stronger, and you know, and you lose your humanity. Now, that's the kind of baddies that they got to fight, and so that's an interesting story. And I thought the story itself was generally interesting throughout. Um, Now that's the main overarching story, but then we have other stories within. So the other story is father and son relationship between Peacemaker and his father. Now in the story, in the Peacemaker's father is a Nazi. Like, easiest way to say it, he's a Nazi. He's that typical white supremacist, which I thought was a bit much. Like, that is, I'm not even sure what generation that's from. Like, I think even the Nazis would be like, oh, you're a bit much. but, but yeah, who knows? So yeah, so I think that was a little heavy-handed. I thought that they played the father up as this neo-Nazi kind of white supremacist, like, saying like just things like obviously disparaging, and like he's totally racist against everybody that's not white. And I thought that was a little bit weird. It just, I have not seen that ever. Even in the 80s, when people were a little bit more casual about being like anti whatever group, I haven't seen it to that level. We're, even back then, you'd have some elements of politeness. He was just like a full on racist, which is maybe All in the Family kind of guy. Like, I feel like that kind of Archie Bunker kind of attitude. And it just feels like I just don't see that nowadays. Like, I don't see anyone ever behaving that way. And maybe I'm like, maybe I just haven't hung out with enough racists lately. But I don't think people act like that anymore. It's not real. And that's, and it kind of, to me, that was disturbing. I kind of would have liked, that, sure, his father could have been just overbearing, but did he have to be a white supremacist, racist kind of guy? I thought that was a little much. But there's that. And his father, they wanted to create his father as this kind of demon. I really do feel like that. And Peacemaker is under that shadow of this demonic father in a way. And he's not a real demon, but what I mean by that is that he is this archetype of evil. The Nazi, all the things that the modern generation would consider evil. Oh, he's racist. Oh, he must be evil. They might as well just had him wearing a mega hat or something. And I felt like, like the typical stereotypical, what like the people on the left think is like a Nazi. Like, if you wear a mega hat, all of a sudden you're a Nazi. But I don't believe that. I think that's stupid. It had that feel to his character. And then you got Peacemaker, who had lived a tortured life from his father. He grew up, always being called a pussy, being called a wimp, kind of, fag, and like the typical, stuff that nowadays would totally offend people, and people would cry about and maybe have to get counseling if they heard those words. It's like different times. But he grew up with that, and he grew up with that kind of very overbearing father that kind of, in a way, kind of crushed his spirit in a way. And he kind of helped, he had to overcome his father's, damage that he caused him. And there is that resolution where basically Peacemaker, one of the big baddies that he ends up having to fight is his own father. So that's, it's kind of an interesting story that they couldn't have that actual resolution. The only way that they could resolve it was to the death, like to fight to the death. And so he had to kill his father, basically. And I saw that as really a missed opportunity in many ways. That, there could have been some kind of resolution there. But I thought that was it was an interesting dynamic. The other thing that was interesting was I enjoyed Peacemaker for the fact that just like in Cobra Kai, the guy that's pulled out of the 80s or out of that different generation, he makes people like him regardless. Even though he says offensive things, they think he's a total douche, total dick, as the way they called it in the movie or TV series. Um, he does encapsulate all that, but he's lovable in many ways because you can kind of respect him. Like he says things the way the way he sees them. And that's one thing that people don't understand about political correctness that is really toxic about political correctness. And I actually heard this said by a black person who was talking about how he had befriended, like he was basically this black man who had done like a huge amount of research on Nazis, on neo-Nazis actually. And he ended up, basically encamping with these neo-Nazis. He's a black guy, but he basically went and lived with these neo-Nazis and learned what their ideology was, the way that they thought, and everything about them. Which is crazy if you think about it. And in the end, he actually kind of made friends with the with the Nazis. He understood the way that they were thinking, and he actually started collect. He even had this little collection of Ku Klux Klan stuff. It was really bizarre, but he said something really interesting, and one little phrase that I thought was really brilliant about his documentary, and where he's documenting these KKK people. And he said that there's something interesting he thought was interesting about these. He thought they were totally racist. He totally thought they were racist, but he always knew where he stood with them. He always knew that they're racist. They don't like him immediately. They're totally bigoted because of his skin color, and he knew where he stood with them. And when they spoke to him, they were honest about the way that they felt and the way that their bigotries and their racism. However, with the politically correct people, he never knew where they truly stood. He never knew really what they really felt. And that was, so at least with the racists, he knew where he stood. But with the politically correct people, he never knew. And that is, in a way, much more uncomfortable feeling. And I think that's the problem with this whole politically correct stuff, where in a way it makes you less lovable. Like, because you never know, like when you don't know what the people are really thinking, how can you really feel close to them? And in a way, when people are more open and like willing to say whatever crazy stuff is going on in their mind, whether it's like totally out to lunch or not, and that's the way Peacemaker was. He said some really crazy stuff, but you knew where he stood and you know what he stood for. And that's respectable. And you can kind of relate to him and you could say, well, you're a total dick. You're a total idiot. But he would respect you for saying that too, because you're going to his level. You're going to that honest level. And that's one thing that I think was really great about the show, that they reached that honest level where they could have a dialogue and they could see past each other's, attitudes and negativities and stuff. So one of the main characters, other than Peacemaker, and other than Vigilante, Vigilante's a kind of a major character too, but it was this the daughter of what's her name, the main woman. I can't remember her name. I'm forgetting her name, but it's Abe Boya Bayo. I can't remember. Okay, the black woman. Sorry, she was a very large black woman. One of my favorite characters in the series. I just can't say her name because it's one of those crazy names. I had it in my head. I actually practiced it before recording this, but now for some reason I blank on it. Abe Bayo. Okay, I can't remember it. But so it's she was really great. she was really, I really liked her as a character. And her first impression of Peacemaker was interesting. She saw him as like a bit of a jerk. And then, but after over time, she kind of began to like him. And at the end of the whole arc of the story, they became best friends. And I thought that was very cool. Um, there was the one big fault thing that I didn't like about Peacemaker is there is the message. The message, if you watch Critical Drinker, that's another YouTuber channel that you can watch. He goes on about the message, and the message is like, diversity and inclusion and gay, lesbian, blah, blacks, and like, have like blacks are beautiful, and like, it's like, it's a message. It's just a sort of a meme that he created, and I think it's a good meme to describe what's happening in movies and in comics and in general society, that there's this push to push the message. And I have nothing against any of those groups. Like just as a little secret about myself that I'm going to share with you, my best friend, my best man at my wedding is a gay man. I'm totally open to anyone, their beliefs or whatever. I'm kind of very progressive in many ways, but I still hate wokeism. I will never appreciate it. Sorry, but I just it's socialist in the way it thinks. But okay, that's an aside. See, this is the kind of thing, my honesty always gets me into trouble. But so, but the point is, the message is definitely clear in this. There's so many times where they say, "Oh, you can't say that word," or "You can't do that," and they kind of preach a bit, and I don't like that. I think it's kind of, it's like, what the heck, they're like, they just killed like a whole bunch of people, and nobody has a problem with that, but then they say some word that nobody's allowed to say. Come on. Like, levels of importance. Killing people is not such a good thing. Saying a word, not such a bad, you know levels. It's like, oh, the people's morals are just so messed up. Like the way that they talked about the father, for example, just quickly aside here before I forget my train of thought. There's a scene where they basically are talking about the father being a total racist, and it's obvious he is a total racist. But they said, well, he's a total racist, we should kill him. Like, what? What are you thinking? Just because you think somebody has the wrong opinions, you want to kill them. That is the worst, like, morals that you can have. That is like, when does that stop? Like, so that, okay, so they don't like whatever group that you want to say that is a great group. Then you could say, after a while, if you keep on hunting people down for the wrong opinion, you'll kill everybody. It's the wrong way to think. You got to accept the fact that people might not like you, might not like have the same opinion as you. It's okay. You don't have to go and kill them. It's like, I thought that was crazy. What are these people thinking? Just bad morals in terms of that. So that really bothered me. And at the very end of the show, and I'm going to spoil the whole show to you, we learn that the aliens, these little butterflies, the reason that they take over all these kind of key figures in our society, world leaders, and is to basically make our planet safe. They want to save our planet from making the same mistakes that their planet did. So they had to leave their planet because global warming and all the crazy stuff that they push now, the same stuff that they tell us that we have to worry about. And then by coming here, they can save us from making those same mistakes by, taking over a world and making a global world and blah, blah, blah. So basically, they're kind of justifying the idea that they know best. And that's really irritating, first of all. But that is actually the philosophy that gets people into trouble. Um, so this is the attitude that is really prevalent in this modern culture that I hate. That there is somebody that knows best what other people should be doing, and that's what if you can think of any dictator, they are the ones that think that they know best, and that is what's gotten our society into trouble. And so Peacemaker is given that choice. Does he help this group that have the same goal as him? He wants world peace. He wants peace at any cost. They want to have world peace as well. They want peace at any cost, even if it means that they have to kill the brains of a whole bunch of leaders across the world and basically take away human freedom. But that's a small cost in their minds to basically fighting global warming, you know, controlling, the world in general. Okay, so he's given that choice. Does he help them, or does he kill them? Like, that's the other option, and really promote freedom, but at the loss of potentially peace. So peace and no more potential global warming or whatever crazy problems that they believe that there are, or freedom. And that was a very interesting choice. I actually knew what choice he would make, and spoiler, he makes the choice for freedom, which is actually what I would have done. It's a painful choice in a way, because in a way there's that feeling that we all have this inside of us, where we feel like, oh, maybe if we just sacrifice our freedoms, maybe if we just sacrifice our security, like our ability to do what we want, if it means having a better world and better whatever, then it's a good thing. Fortunately, he made the right choice. He stopped them from carrying out their vision of the world. And the reason I say that that was the better choice is the road to hell is often paved with good intentions. As I said, if you look at every leader that has ever wanted power, they don't want power just because they're like some evil person like trying to take over the world. It's never that way. That is never the case. They want power because they have a vision. And their vision, they believe, is the right vision. Hitler had the right vision, he thought. Stalin thought he had the right vision. Mao Zedong thought he had the right vision. All these diabolical people thought they had the right vision. And they thought if they could just carry out their vision, they could make the world a better place. That is scary stuff. And that's when a lot of things go wrong. When we give up our freedoms for security, we generally end up with neither. Instead of, if we just trust in our fellow man sometimes, we end up with both. We end up with security and freedom. It's weird how that works. Generally, it's better to let people make their own decisions. Like, I don't really want to. I'll probably get in trouble with YouTube for mentioning this, but I feel like it's relevant. So I'll do it on the climate thing. I could do it on the COVID thing, and there's so many things where the government's made so many bad decisions, and it killed more people than it actually saved. And had people just been given their freedom, they probably would have protected themselves better. Like, people know how to take care of themselves. We don't have to be babysat by the government. But I'll talk about global warming, which is just as controversial. Why do I do this to myself? But with global warming, let's say I'm going to say it's real. Like, I'm going to take that side, even though I've seen science and I know science a little bit more than the average Joe on that. But I'm going to say it's real just for today. In that idea, there's actually been science that looked at, let's say it's real and the world's gonna, die if we, use all our fossil fuels and whatever. Okay. Um, Now they've looked at that and making that assumption. Okay. And they found that if you help poorer countries basically use fossil fuels and become energy more sustainable, like better, get more access to energy, that actually what ends up happening is they actually improve their own environments. So if you look at the you know the oceans, for example, is a good example. Majority, like 97% of all the pollution that happens in the oceans happens from three countries. Like it's India, China, and some African countries. And the reason that those countries are the worst is they're generally poorer. And when poorer people make decisions, they make it based on what their needs are at that moment. And it's because they don't have that freedom of, they're basically surviving. They don't have that freedom of choice in the matter. So they'll make the choice of sacrificing their environment for this choice of just survival. They'll, but when you get to a state where they can get more access to energy, what ends up happening is their economy goes up a bit. They have more money, and they start making a different choice. They say, well, I don't really want my water to be polluted. I don't really want my air to be polluted. And they'll generally make a better choice. And there's so much studies on that, and it's generally true. It's what happens. Like as societies evolve, they actually become cleaner. If you look at the United States, it's the craziest thing. So, but if you go back in time, like there was actually less trees than there are now in the United States, and it's because people want a more clean environment. They want a beautiful society, and they generally will be cleaner and greener as a result. And generally, what ends up happening is governments are the ones that end up destroying that that whole success of the people trying to just have a better environment around themselves. You look at the way the United States has been run, where they push in all these green technologies that are actually worse than the technologies that we already had. That like nuclear is such a great technology. I'm a physics major. I know like nuclear is like 1,000 times cleaner than pretty much any other technology. And yet, we got these activists that demonize it. And the reason they demonize it, and they're actually funded by the oil companies half the time. Sorry to be all conspiratorial, but it is true. It's just look into the research. The reason they're funded by the oil companies is they know that wind, solar, and all these kind of technologies that are really dirty actually aren't sustainable. They are not ones that people can actually live off of. So it ends up that people will always go back to oil as a way to, make the lights turn on and, heat the house. So, if you demonize the other better technology, which is nuclear, then you can, keep on selling your product. And that's generally what has happened. That's the that's the dark secret behind all of these wonderful green technologies that aren't so green in the end. It is, but that's the same logic that happens with these people that think that they know best, that they think that their way is better. And rather than allowing people to kind of have that freedom, the freedom of the market even, they make these choices for them, and often they make the worst choices. Especially governments. Governments are so like influenced by like popular opinion. So if the popular opinion is such, they will go with that. And it doesn't necessarily mean the popular opinion is correct. They just go with it. And that's the problem. Like if where we have these people that are making bad decisions based on their own political like stance or their own political motivations. And that's the big problem. That's the problem that we saw in Peacemaker. Going back to Peacemaker, that we see these aliens thinking that they're making the right choice. It's okay that they kill a whole bunch of people as long as the ends justify the means. And there's a scene where they literally kill a whole entire police station. These are good people. They're just police officers. They're nothing, and they kill them all, and they convert them into these alien butterfly people. And that is a very evil act if you think about it. But it's justified because they think if they take over that police force, they can use that to basically hunt down the Peacemaker, who is at this point potentially thwarting their plans to dominate the world. Dominate the world for a good cause, but dominate the world. So yeah, I think that's something that I'm not sure if most people will get that deep into it. I have a tendency of getting into all the political stuff myself. But in a way, that is something that really I find is pushed too much in modern things. And it makes me triggers my mind to think politically and that kind of way, is that the fact that they are being so political. Like, in a way, it could have been just a great story if, it's these evil aliens that are taking over people, and they think that they have a good cause, but the cause may be not so justified. And I think they could have had that kind of cool discussion. They didn't really get that deep into it, but it was there. But there was just so many things like that where I felt like there was that message. It was there. And it kind of bothered me a lot of the time. But one good thing, I felt like there was a bit of a push against the message, which I thought was great. Where Peacemaker, he says his mind about it. So I think there was a bit of balance there. So overall, I would give the series definitely really high marks. I think it was excellent. Not meant for kids. Don't let your kids watch it. There's graphic nudity, graphic violence. It is kind of like Suicide Squad in terms of the level of violence and gore and sexuality. But definitely an interesting series. Definitely one that I could see them making more of. And the only thing that bothered me was that they killed off a few of the characters that I would have liked to have seen more of. But they left little openings for them in a weird way. So his father, he gets killed, right? But at the same time, his father's now a ghost that haunts Peacemaker. I think that's cool, where they can still bring that character in. The Asian cop song, I think that's so funny. That's my wife's last name. So she basically is like taken over. So she's dead in a way, but the creature that took her over is still around. So there's still possibilities there. So they kind of left little like almost like typical comic thing where they're not really dead. They're sort of dead. I thought that was kind of interesting. I'm curious what they'll do with season 2. I thought there was a lot of great things that were really interesting. I did enjoy the scene with another big spoiler at the very end. They had the Justice League come in, and Peacemaker's like, "You guys are too late. You're too late. we already dealt with all the problems." And I thought that was interesting. I thought that was a very interesting take, because again, that really kind of drives home this whole idea of somebody else taking responsibility, that we have to depend on those people to help us rather than doing it ourselves. And Peacemaker, he did it himself. He was like, okay, I guess we can't wait for the heroes to come. We got to take measures into our own hands. And I think that's ultimately the message that we all should take from Peacemaker, that we shouldn't just give other people the freedom to, or give our freedoms away and with the hope that somebody else will make better decisions for us. I think that's really, we got to take things in our own hands. We got to do things on our own. And yeah, I think that's important. So, bit of a rant, bit of a like. I should have probably talked more about Peacemaker. I kind of talked more about the political part of Peacemaker, but that's the way my mind works. I'm very, very politics orientated. I'm not even sure if I should air this. Like, I don't know. I'll show, like, let people watch this, but um, I probably should have put a disclaimer at the beginning. If you don't like political stuff and you just want to talk about comics, this is not the video for you. I should have said that like 30 minutes ago, but oh well. So yeah, watch Peacemaker. It is a good show. Lots of fun, lots of humor, uh, and really great acting. So that's the key. Don't worry about all the political stuff. Just enjoy the show. Thanks again. Bye for now.